Hi, this question comes from Allison P. And Allison P. has a very scientific question, which we get a lot, and she's wanting to know, because the magnesium level is so high in Oxy-Powder, will she absorb that magnesium? Will she need to take excess magnesium as a dietary supplement, and how the magnesium oxide works? So, Allison, let me just answer this question for you. The way that Oxy-Powder is designed, we looked at many different forms of catalysts, or stuff that we could actually bond the oxygen, the monoatomic oxygen, to, without it, being eaten up by the oxygen, or something that would actually hold it. It turns out that the magnesium oxides were one of the most effective. Now, there's a difference between magnesium oxide, magnesium peroxide, magnesium hydroxide, many different differences. Milk of magnesia, for example, is magnesium hydroxide. What we use magnesium oxide and magnesium peroxide. Now, the difference is, will you absorb any magnesium oxide? Technically, you're not really going to ever absorb any magnesium oxide. It's not classified as a dietary form of magnesium. However, there are 4 cases where you might actually absorb magnesium oxide. First case is if you ingest magnesium oxide in levels lower than 30 milligrams, it's not going to be enough to cause a reaction with the stomach acid, and you might actually absorb a tiny amount of magnesium oxide. This, of course, will not happen with Oxy-Powder because the magnesium oxide is above 30 milligrams. The second case where you might absorb magnesium would be if you take the Oxy-Powder with a large meal. There's nothing, we can't determine with a large meal, depending on what you ate, the reactions that are going to take place with the enzymes and the different properties in the foods, and the reactions that might, get produced. So you might actually absorb a small amount of magnesium oxide, or magnesium, elemental magnesium, or supplemental magnesium, if you take Oxy-Powder with a large meal. Now, we recommend taking Oxy-Powder after meals at night on an empty stomach. So again, we've covered that issue of you being getting excess magnesium in your system. The third way that you might get excess magnesium is if you supplement your diet with L-carnitine or niacin. Okay, niacin or nicotinic acid, more or less nicotinic acid, what niacin breaks down to. But you would have to take the nicotinic acid and the L-carnitine at the same time as you take Oxy-Powder. Again, we don't recommend that, and even if you did, you would probably only absorb a small amount of the magnesium. The last way you might absorb magnesium is if you take emulsified vitamin D, or if you take a lot of vitamin D at the same time you take Oxy-Powder. So we've kind of covered all these factors, and you will not, if anything, it will not affect your magnesium levels in your system. Now, in some cases, when you take straight magnesium oxide, you might get a laxative effect if you take large doses. You might actually get a small laxative effect depending on how many capsules you take with Oxy-Powder. But that is not the whole goal of what Oxy-Powder is about. The whole goal of what Oxy-Powder is about is getting the oxygen into your intestinal tract. I mean, that's getting those monatomic molecules of oxygen in there to really clean up the deep-seated, rooted trash that are in there and help repair the intestinal lining over a period of time. Beware of other oxygen cleansers out there too, because pretty much everyone we've tested, except for Homozone and our product, are just using bursts of oxygen, like with magnesium peroxide, and you just get an initial burst of oxygen, and you never even get any oxygen going into the intestinal tract because it just gets released as soon as it hits the stomach acid. As far as your question about overdosing on magnesium, most likely you will never overdose on magnesium. I mean, we really recommend taking a good magnesium supplement, and anytime you're taking magnesium, you should always take calcium, because calcium and magnesium work together. There should be a 2-to-1 ratio. You should have 2 times a general rule of thumb is a 2-to-1 ratio. In other words, for every 1,000 milligrams of calcium, you have 500 milligrams of magnesium. The two best forms that I would recommend are calcium orotate and magnesium orotate. I actually put together a product called Intracal. Intracal is probably one of the best things you could take if you want to supplement your calcium and magnesium levels with Oxy-Powder. Those are my recommendations. As far as any other forms of magnesium that are out there, I would not recommend them. The orotate form is the only one that goes into the cell mitochondria. So if you have any further questions, please give us a call. Thanks for your question.